All right, we're continuing with the problem answer 1.3 and part 1, simplify each expression and write answers as integers or reduced fraction. So here's number 5, 4/5 divided by 2 times 10. You might remember that number 3 was very similar. I'm going to write it over on the side here. Number 3 looked almost the same. It said 4/5 divided by 2 times 10. Do you see the difference? In number 3, the 2 times 10 was in parentheses, and that was what we did first. For number 5, there are no parentheses. All right, so we're going to do order of operations. There are no parentheses. There are no exponents. So next you do multiplication or division as it occurs from left to right. The division comes first, so you do the division first. You do not multiply 2 times 10 as we did in number 3. So how do you do 4/5 divided by 2? Well, you change the division sign to a multiplication and write the reciprocal of 2, which means you switch the numerator and denominator. Now remember, 2 could be thought of as 2 over 1. So the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. And I could simplify that first and then do times 10, but I'm going to go ahead and write times 10 over 1, all in one step. Because now really what I have is multiplication. So if you change your division with fractions to multiplying by the reciprocal, you'll just have multiplication. Let's notice something here. There are different ways to cancel. You could multiply numerator and denominator and then cancel. I think it's easier to cancel first. So I notice in the bottom I have 5 times 2, which is 10, and that's going to cancel out with that 10 in the numerator. So that's the easiest way I see to do this problem. Cancels both of those out at once. And I've got in the numerator 4 times 1 times 1, which is 4 over 1. Now is that a reduced fraction? No. 4 over 1 means 4 divided by 1. You have to remember to finish. This actually is an integer for the answer. It's 4. All right. As a quick little reminder, when we did number 3, we did 4/5 divided by 20 because I had to do inside the parentheses first. And I'm going to write that as 20 over 1 so you can see when you multiply by the reciprocal, you get 1/20th. And then when you cancel the 4 into the 20, our answer is 1 in the numerator and 5 times 5 in the denominator. Notice you get a really different answer when you have the 2 times 10 in the parentheses. So you have to be very careful that you follow the order of operations exactly. Here's number 6. Actually, number 4 was also very similar to this. The only difference was there was not parentheses around 8 plus 3. In number 6, we do have the parentheses around 8 plus 3. Okay, so let's work this one out. We have to simplify within each parentheses. So in the first parentheses, I've got to do 5 squared minus 3, exponents first, gives me 25 minus 3. And copy up to the next parentheses, and doing the order of operations, all we can do is 8 plus 3, which is 11. Now, you don't have to keep the parentheses around the 11 because that just means minus 11. All right, so now we have to still simplify within this parentheses, so we have 2 times 22. And you could have either written that as 2 times with a dot 22 or 2 parentheses 22. It means 2 times 22, and then we have minus 11. All right, so we've simplified within both parentheses. Next, you look to see if there are any exponents. There are no exponents. Then we do any multiplication or division from left to right, and that's the 2 times 22. That comes before subtraction. So we have 44 minus 11, which is 33. So that is the correct answer. All right, let's take a look back at number 4 to see how that was different. So here's number 4. Notice there was not a parentheses around 8 plus 3. So when I got to this step, 44 minus 8 plus 3, I had to do the 44 minus 8. got 36, and then added 3 and 39. So my answer to number 4 was 39 because the 8 plus 3 was not in the parentheses. But in number 6, 8 plus 3 was in parentheses. Let's see what happened there. When it was in parentheses, I got 44 minus 11, and the answer was 33. So, word of the wise, be careful with these order of operations in parentheses. Okay, we're going over Chapter 1, 1.3 still. This is Section 2. Evaluate each expression when x equals 2, y equals 3, and z equals 5. And then we want to write our answers as integers or reduced fractions. This is similar to Part 1, except first you'll have to plug in the correct values for any variables. All right, so keep in mind x is 2, y is 3, and z is 5. All right, so we're going to plug those in. So instead of x, remember this means 3 times x to the 4th. That means times, instead of x, we're going to put a 2 to the 4th power. So this thing gives me 3 times 2 to the 4th. Well, 2 to the 4th is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 16. And so the answer is 48. So that's directly substituting in the 2 as is. I actually like to do it this way, a little bit different. I start off with 3x to the 4th, but before plugging in the value of x, I actually write out what 3x to the 4th means. It means 3 times x times x times x times x. Sorry for that funny looking x. Let's change that so it looks like an x. And now I plug in the values for x. So I'm going to plug in 2 for each x. And we still end up with 48 when you multiply all those numbers together. So that's number 1. All right, here's number 2. Again, we're going to evaluate this, but we're going to have to plug in possible values for x, y, and z. So let's do this. This means 7 times y times z. So it's 7 times 3 times, well, z is 5, right? So you see how I'm plugging in the 3 where the y is and the 5 where the z is, minus 8 times, and for x we're plugging in a 2. All right, now we're going to go back to the order of operations. I've got no parentheses, no exponents, so we do any multiplication or division from left to right. So here's some multiplication and here's some more multiplication. So I need to do both of those multiplications. 7 times 3 times 5 is 105, minus 8 times 2 is 16. So we do 105 minus 16, and that's going to give you 89. And that's number 2. All right, here's number 3. We're still evaluating where x equals 2, y equals 3, and z equals 5. This is part 2, problems from 1.3. So we're going to plug in the values for x, y, and z. So we have 4 times x, which is 2, times y, which is 3, minus z, which is 5 in the numerator. In the denominator, we have 3 times x, which is 2, plus 1. And now we're going to do order of operations, which remember means you do the numerator, completely simplify that, completely simplify the denominator, and then see if you could reduce if possible. All right, so in the numerator, we have multiplication and subtraction. Multiplication comes first. 4 times 2 times 3 is 24, minus 5. And in the denominator, we have multiplication and addition. Multiplication comes first, so we have 6 plus 1, or 7. So we're almost done. In the numerator, we still have to simplify that 24 minus 5, which is 19, 7. All right, so this is a fraction. It does not reduce because those are prime numbers. So our answer is 19 sevenths. Now, if you'd like to write that as a mixed number, that's fine. You would divide 7 into 19, which is 2, remainder 5, so you'd have 2 and 5 sevenths. So it's also correct to write 2 and 5 sevenths, either 2 and 5 sevenths or 19 seventeenths.